Yeah, so that's good. I don't know. We'll continue to talk through this. I didn't even think. Can we see Phil? Is it like a green screen? Now that it's now that I went with cardboard background.
That's why I wore these blue colors so they could bright ones so they knew that this is where he is.
We're on the air on radio. That's what folks we painted. We painted the studio. Oh shoot! And we're live.
Here we go. We're live. It is time on 21.6 The Net for Bridging Civil Tension with Phil Wallace and Kent Jones. Gentlemen, good morning. Introduce yourselves and tell us what we're talking about today.
Welcome. Hey, welcome. After a week off, you're in McHenry County Leadership Group, right?
Leadership of Greater McHenry County. So was there last week. We had a leadership retreat. It was fun. Learned some things about our area and connected with some amazing people.
It was done by 6 though.
Yeah, it was 2 days though. It was 9 to 5:30 both days, Friday and Saturday. So
nice.
That was great.
That is great. Of course, that's the voice of Phil Wallace, the author, entrepreneur, written 3 books, bestseller back in 14.
Yes,
already 6 years ago.
The 5th was like their anniversary date.
Isn't that something? Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. It's amazing. Yeah, go ahead. Our producers there you go. It doesn't have his hearing aid.
Hip hop playing in the background.
Right. Check it out. Too short right now.
8
and Lelos,
live a life of significance. Raising money for the kids, man. Enjoying it.
And of course, we come to you every Friday morning, bridging civil tension to talk about what everybody's afraid to talk, what they want to yell about and fight about, but what they're afraid to talk about, and what quote unquote Main Street media will just keep poking the bruise instead of trying to figure out a way to help out and get her done.
Which is helpful.
So today we really want to talk about playing the victim. Okay. And you're going to ask where this really spurned from. And one of our listeners a few weeks ago sent us an article written by Sylvia Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who don't know Sylvia Thompson, she's an African-American conservative writer, right? And we'll talk about that. So, and what was sent to us, and I want to quote this. So it was sent to us by one of our listeners. It said, "Hey, if a white person had written this, he or she would immediately be declared a racist and shunned by all." And the title of the article was entitled "Enough with Victimhood: Millionaire Athletes and Their Lost Cause." And she goes to say black victims these days, for the most part, are the product of decades of black Americans being used primarily by white progressive leftists to advance any anti-American agenda. She goes on through this whole thing saying, hey, you gotta stop playing, African Americans, but black people in America have to stop playing the victim.
Right.
Now, they shared it to me. I sent it right out to you and Pete, the producer, and I got an interesting response from you, right?
Yeah.
And your response kind of threw me a little bit. So, and the response was, "Hey, I would like to meet this quote unquote
black person,
just because of the tonality and the way that the article is written, right? And why did you respond that way?
I mean, it's very few and far between. I've seen, as far as on the national scale, to see the wording. I think that it's not necessarily the ideas in certain situations are there, but there's certain wording that typically doesn't come across, especially of a person of color who knows that there is truth to the things that are being protested.
Yeah.
So when you see certain jargon, it's typically not from us. On a major scale, it's not.
Right. So then I send you the Snopes,
right?
And I went and Googled her and looked, to make sure as well, because there are quote unquote authors who, pen names and whatever, will say, "Hey, I'm African American," and they're,
Malcolm Jones,
right. They're pasty white people, right? That are just trying to stir the pot, and she is. But she's a conservative writer.
Right.
And I think that, what she's trying to say is, hey, take a stand and stand up for yourselves. Quit playing the victims. Let's be progressive. Let's move forward. Right. It was what I think she's trying to do. Now, that's a great message. But here you are, 34 years old,
Right.
Lived in the South,
Right.
and I've never heard of this lady. Never read one article from this lady.
No one.
So who's her audience is the question.
Exactly. And so then that brings me to the next point of people like that are impossible. It's not, there aren't any black conservatives. There's just not a lot of them. There are people who I feel benefit, whether financially or publicly, through having dialogue and having the vernacular of those who have a certain belief system. And I know for myself as a black person, if I start to say these things and I become that voice for this audience, they'll share that H out of my post. They'll, make me their hero. They'll say, see, Phil gets it. Why don't the rest of you guys? And, my YouTube views go up. I'm popular now. My voice is out there. And they'll tell me that I'm so wise and so sharp and on because everything that I say solidifies their racial beliefs or racist beliefs. And it's a dangerous game to play. I understand it. There's been those people on plantations. There's been those people like that through the history of time. It's just unfortunate that they would rather gain their popularity that way.
Right. So you had brought up Candace Owens. Right. You had brought up I don't even know their name. The twins.
Hodges twins.
Who?
Hodges twins.
Hodges twins. All right. Which I've seen some things from them. I haven't really paid much attention. Right. And you and I then had a conversation, and you were like, "Listen, they're padding their pockets. They're not necessarily out there to help the cause, but to say, hey, I know that this conservative bunch of people will write some checks and support me, and
they will
push
highlight me, show me, put me on TV, radio, whatever is needed to continue this. And I know that share button is going to get millions of times for putting down my own people."
So do you think they don't feel that way? You think that they're like they found their honey hole, so to speak, and said, "Hey, I'm gonna make some money here."
We recently named a person whose career started asking the NAACP to assist her with a racial dispute against an organization. So they're recognizing that racism happened to them. They felt strongly enough that they would call the NAACP to come in to aid her in this situation. And then 5 to 10 years later, she's telling black people need to not the writer, but a different one.
Yeah.
Get over it. Stop playing the victim because racism doesn't happen in America. So how did you get popular?
Right.
That's the struggle, because we knew you in the
speaks
early
brilliantly.
phase.
She's brilliant.
Speaks brilliantly.
Yep.
But you just contradicted yourself. You got on the national stage because of racism that you brought attention to. And now that you're sitting here trying to say that black people need to stop whining because there's no racism anymore, what this is document
right.
And then when you have people in these conversations where they get to push the send button or enter when they get done venting, they're like, well, she gets it into it. Well, you don't know who can. Well, do you know the whole story? Because this is how she started.
Sure. But can't people see a light or change their mind?
There's changing on beliefs. There's not changing on your history, your experience. Sure. The stuff that you've gone through and experienced is always going to be things that you've experienced. So once you've experienced racism, that's always a part of you. So you can't say that that's disappeared, especially if you're hearing from people who are in very similar situations.
Right. Just doesn't go away, which is true. And I think that, and you and I, and I don't know if you too, Pete, have I've read several of her articles now. Right. And Sylvia Thompson's. And if you want to read more about her, you can go to renewamerica.com. Right. She's a brilliant lady. Yeah. She's a great writer. But The issue that I have is the issue that we kind of have gone back and forth with is that she now puts in an R and a D, right? Right in there. Hey, Julie, thanks for listening. I took that off. She's explained her growth in that area. We can change our options, Phil. So I don't think. Let me see. I don't think she said that it's flat disappeared. So
she did though. I mean, I'll share it, but she did because I literally had this conversation with someone else who said, "What exactly don't you like about what she said?" And I posted that things like this, where she makes these blanket statements, saying that it's disappeared in America or has gone away in America, like that's just not true. And when you're utilizing the emotions of certain people to then twist the words to make it seem like they're just all overreacting for something that you clearly felt passionate about when it happened to you, no one's acting any more irrational or emotional or whatever than she did when she asked for assistance, when she said that this was wrong and it shouldn't be happening. So to tell people that they're whining all of a sudden because it doesn't no longer personally benefit her, I see a problem with.
And perhaps the world that the America she lives in is there isn't.
I'm sure that once you become the pet, you are treated differently,
right? And here's what I say by that, and I don't want we talked about it in the green room a little bit before the show, but there's two. I was watching a show. I'm not going to name the show, but I was watching a show. There's about a 6th grade young black guy, and he's being mentored by a
30-something
successful businessman, 30-something, and the little guy is like, listen. He lives in an all-white family, the little black guy, and he's like, listen, I just need some help how to live in America as a black man. And the response was, in what America?
Right.
And the little guy says, this America. And hey, Ted, good morning. And then the mentor says, well, no, there's the white America and there's the black America. Which one do you want to learn to live in? Right.
You have to learn.
And so, and then I found that interesting. And I don't know if that's wrong, and I don't know if it's a bad thing.
Right.
There is and I think there's a Muslim America. I think there is a Latino America. And everybody's experiences in America are different, I think. Right. And so I use
Stop saying hi.
Hey, Steph. I use the image of, hey, the vanilla and chocolate ice cream in Baskin Robbins lives with 32 other flavors, but they're all in their own container.
Flavors.
Right? Delicious flavors, yeah. So, but they're all in their own container. Now they live happily together,
right,
but they're all in their own container.
Right.
And so they know a different piece of that.
This is
freezer.
That when you tell people, I'm Muslim, certain people are going to look at you a certain way. When you are black in certain
neighborhoods, or you wear a tahiki or whatever that is.
If you wear that out and about or in an airport, I guarantee you your experience is going to look different. Than someone just wearing wearing a suit and tie is going to look different than someone my complexion with a turban and the entire outfit. Like that's just what it is. I struggle with if a person has not been there or actually taken the time to have conversations, not with going into that conversation already knowing your answer. Going in there with an open mind. Hey, I haven't personally experienced this, but you have. Mm-hmm. What is it like? And then absorbing the feedback given to you. I struggle with people saying that it doesn't happen when they haven't had the time or taken the time to see if it does happen.
Right. And when you get authors, that are well written and spoken, Ted, there is a white America and an immigrant America and a disabled America. Discrimination hits all levels. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree, and we've actually. So the interesting thing is with the disabled America, we've actually put laws in place,
right,
to help them,
and no one tells them to stop whining,
right.
If you have an establishment and does not have a ramp or a way for someone to get in and out because they are disabled, no one goes back to that person and says stop whining,
right,
stop playing the victim.
Not the way
here.
it is. I can walk in anywhere.
Right. You have the freedom to just walk anywhere you want to. Why are you trying to make such a big? No one does that, and that's where I'm looking for any other essence or any other aspect of life where people respond to a group the way that they're doing to black people, and I don't see it. I don't see it when it's. I don't see when the N word is nerd. Right. I don't see when it's a woman who's been raped. I don't see when it is disabled. We make accommodations. We start clubs. We do everything that's needed to do. But when it's black people, you're playing the victim by bringing awareness to you being mistreated.
Right. Now the interesting thing is, in one of her articles, White Guilt and Black Victimhood, she says, while George Floyd was indeed a victim, the victimhood mentality stoked by a rabid progressive media and attention-seeking activists everywhere is doing untold damage to the black community. That millions of black Americans consider themselves as victims can only lead to tragedy for America and specifically for them as individuals. Those who think of themselves as victims feel they are no longer bound by the standard of society's moral codes. The more people who see themselves as victims, the more likely they are to commit crimes. Agree or disagree with that?
Disagree.
Why?
Again, I've had 11 guns pulled on me by police officers. I don't want to commit any crimes.
Sure.
I would just like to stop being pulled over for being in the wrong neighborhood and told that my Altima is too nice for someone like me to drive.
I still get that. If it was a $100,000 Mercedes,
I just if I had rims and tinted windows. You can see me in my Starbucks cup. It's a white Altima. There's no candy paint or any of that.
Yeah.
So where's the bar?
Ted says he gets stopped whining all the time. Ted he's in a wheelchair. Spina bifida, right? I think is what he has. So. And Ted, I get it, but that's interesting that people do that for you as well.
Right.
I mean, so it's out there, but you don't necessarily agree that it's going to start committing crimes. People aren't going to start committing crimes as victims.
I just feel like that message right there is dangerous because there's no responsibility for. Why don't I couldn't say that if you responded to me robbing you.
Yep.
And Pete said you're whining because Phil robbed you. And I was like, well, there's hundreds of thousands of white people complaining and whining about being robbed by black people, blah, blah, blah. That wouldn't be the dialogue. In that situation, it's dangerous that Kent takes the stance as the victim after being robbed at gunpoint by Phil Wallace. No one would say that. What they would say is, Phil, don't rob Kent. What you're doing is wrong, and you're creating a victim by your crimes that you're committing and the actions that you're taking against this person.
Yeah.
But in this situation that you're saying that, okay, so I'm profiled and then I'm more likely to be a criminal because you profiled me because of your belief on my skin. That's not okay.
Go with it, Pete. Jump in there, bud.
Push the bright button here. Here's the thing, though. I completely get where you're coming at from this. I think what a lot of people are failing to take into consideration is that when people talk about the victim mentality, the victimhood mentality, the victim ideology, is that comes in from a psychological standpoint. And people then take you, and it doesn't matter what the victim situation may be. You think of any scenario, it really doesn't matter. What happens psychologically is people take the victim mentality and turn that into justification for actions they take to either somehow pull away from, pull out of, go deeper in. It becomes, that mentality becomes part of their own bias, and that's when you have that seeking for bias justification, and you go in and you go further, and you either go deeper or you go up. You apparently go up.
Right.
You don't go deep. You go up. Otherwise, you obviously wouldn't be the success that you are. In the other scope of things, through psychological studies, shows that many people will dwell in that victim mentality, meaning they dwell in the negative of it, and that spirals downward, and then they take any action, and it's a broad statement.
Right.
They take any action and justify action, be it negative, especially be it negative. They justify it through, well, this happened to me, so this. And that's the victim mentality that people are talking about. It's not, did I rob Kent? Did you rob Kent? Of course, that action is negative. They're going to tell you, hey, don't rob Kent. But then what Kent does with that is he going to become then the victim, and he's going to become a victim forever.
Yeah.
And he's never going to come out of or surpass that event. That's, or has he been robbed 5, 6, 7 times? Or like you've had a gun pulled on you. But I've had
right.
guns pulled on me.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant.
Look at it.
That sinister face.
That ginger.
Ginger.
Listen, people, let me just tell you, if you're thinking about robbing Kent, he's NPNW. He got no pot to piss in and no window to throw it out of. So yeah, you ought to maybe go next door. But here's the interesting thing, I think. Back in the 60s, right? There were systemic barriers. People redlined. We put African American families in certain neighborhoods, couldn't go into certain other neighborhoods. Right. I've had a couple of interesting conversations with some retired sheriffs, which points that out here in Northern Illinois. It was something, but there were systemic barriers against blacks that slowly began to fall. The Civil Rights Act of '64 made it a federal crime, right, to discriminate because of race. You're familiar with Shelby Steele's white guilt, right? And could it be at that point where white liberals kind of soon told the black community that collectively or individually what was wrong with their lives was the fault of white people? So really that racism, really got going because of that book, and where blacks were victims, and
racism got going.
Well, I'm just saying,
because of a book that was published in when?
60s, 64, somewhere in there. I'm just saying.
So you mean to tell me something that's happened for 400 years and beyond?
Well, as the victim, I mean, and you know better than I do, right?
Okay.
You know better than I do because this is you got your degree in history, right? Is from what I've been taught from watching Roots, right. They understood the slaves. When I'm saying that, they were proud. They stuck together. They believed in God. They believed that they were going to get free. They fought. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they looked at themselves as a victim. Yeah, and help me. That's why I'm saying you know better than I do.
I think through all walks of life, when you realize one of us is in the plantation drinking lemonade and the other one's in the field, something's wrong here. And if I'm treated a certain way because of the color of my skin, I don't need a Facebook to tell me that something's wrong with this picture and I'm being mistreated. So I struggle with trying to find and place the blame on a book made in the 60s.
Okay.
And act like the 30s and 40s and 50s didn't take place prior to that book even being written. Like there were people speaking out of it, after slavery, before the 60s, people were still speaking out of it openly, publicly, having these conversations and dialogue. And it just seems like they're trying to, it's because of this book that all of a sudden this kicked off. No, because they have common sense.
And that, and what I just quoted was out of an article from Sylvia Thompson, right?
What?
So
she says that type of stuff that's mentally conservative.
So
here's the thing, though. In looking at Sylvia Thompson and in looking at many other, it doesn't really matter what friggin' color you are. However, in my experience, having had to study many different Christianity-based religions through early portions of my life, and then being involved with and getting to know Black people. What I find interesting is, by and large, all of them that I have met, without discussing politics or without discussing their feelings on race relations, is that by and large, they are the perhaps most conservative like lifestyle livers I have ever met, finding their values in Christianity very heavily,
Right.
finding family extremely important. I have never met people who regard their mothers as highly as Black men do. Frankly,
Mine's on here.
I'm
Hi,
sorry.
lady. Emery's on it.
I mean, it's amazing. That is something that always has amazed me, is how they, like, their mother is like, oh,
She
and
walks on
My
water.
mama is.
and
That's
while I love my
unbelievable.
mother, she is a person. She has her, her failings as well as her super awesome qualities, but she's not the end all.
I tell my
Be
kids
all.
that too. You disrespect me
Um,
all you want. Don't ever say a bad thing about your mother.
Well,
That's your
well,
mom.
now here again,
That's your
I don't
mother.
let them speak out against their mother.
That
Our
lady
children
pooped
don't
you
speak
out,
out.
man.
Right?
I mean, be honest.
But
about it.
again, these are things that actually pertain to conservative belief formats. So I have a hard time wrapping my head around why then do they lean politically by and large a different way,
right?
and or like you've talked about here, why do they and other people, it doesn't, again, this really doesn't matter what freaking color your skin is, why people seem to love to hang on to that martyrdom that comes with the victim mentality, that
Correct.
oh, woe is me, I am suffering, therefore this, when you clearly don't do that.
Right.
You would not be who you are and the success that you are if you sat and dwelled in the woe is me-isms
I think,
of
so then I
victimhood.
ask,
You just wouldn't.
who do you see doing woe is me?
All kinds of people. Everybody.
You see media making it appear as woe is me. We don't woe is
Well,
me.
individuals.
Think about it. Like, how can I be?
I'm not
How can I
name
be on a
names.
plant? How can we be on a plantation, humming gospel spirituals while on a field? But now is when we woe is me? No, you get told that we woe is me. So that way, when I tell you, hey, I got pulled over yesterday and it was for 3 miles per hour over the speed limit, I had to lay on the ground outside my Altima. Then you're like, oh my God, Phil, you're playing the victim. But we're not woe is me. Where this happened.
You're just saying that happened.
Yeah, this happened. It sucked. It needs to stop. Oh my God, it's just always about race with you people. Well, if you get pulled over multiple times because of the color of your skin, or if you get followed or told that you don't belong in your neighborhood when you live there.
But see, this is why I'm saying, as I look at you as an individual, you don't do that.
Right. And a lot of people,
individuals don't.
none of my Black friends do that. And you can go to my Facebook. I have not spoken to one of my friends who are just sitting in their basement with their pajamas eating a tub of ice cream. Woe is me because they got pulled over. It's just, it needs to stop.
And I know individuals who are exactly like you just described.
Right. So it's okay when it's in other categories, but
no. That's across the board. I could name, if I wanted to, I could name names of Black people, Black people, Chinese people,
Here's the
Filipino
interesting
people.
thing.
I could start naming white people. I could start naming names of people who do exactly what you just did.
They do it.
Listen,
Listen, they'll tell us to stop whining.
For the sake of this
Don't do
show, we're okay. We're comfortable saying Black people.
Yeah.
Okay, because we always hesitate, like Black Chinese, Mexicans, fine.
Black is like the Voldemort of like the vocab. Like we don't speak.
So we're comfortable saying that. Ted says, "Hey, I've lived with very little accommodations and been told by people, why should they accommodate my needs when they don't deal with people like me? I've been treated as stupid by cops and people. I've had cops disrespect me, been beat up, had weapons pulled out on me because people think that I'm weak. People need to stop concentrating on their differences and look at their similarities." Absolutely right. And that's what I want to talk about here in the second half. But the interesting thing is, for Sylvia Thompson, her audience All white guys,
Right.
all white conservative people, and we'll read this and go, damn right. And this is coming from a black lady.
Right. She gets it.
gets
Why don't the
it.
rest of you?
The problem that I have with her is in here in almost all of her writing. It's she's attacking the liberals or the Democrats. Race is not political. I mean, it is, but
It's been politicized.
It has been politicized.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I want to say. And until we can understand that has nothing to do with politics, that this is people that we're dealing with,
right.
And until we understand that, the victimization goes away. And I can honestly say, and I have a lot of black friends as well. I don't know any of them that are playing the victim. I've never met someone who's played the victim.
That's the part.
I know people
who've
who've been the victim, but I don't know people who play the victim. To your point, Pete, I don't know that. I don't know. My uncle, God rest his soul, who just passed away a couple months ago, lived with cerebral palsy his entire life. He wasn't supposed to live past the age of 8 back in the 40s when he was born with this. And he was a strong individual, smart guy, right? But he didn't play the victim either.
Right.
Ted doesn't play the victim. It is the portrayal that the mainstream media wants you to believe plays the victim.
Right.
And I'll go back to what we've talked to in the past. How can a black guy or gal in Crystal Lake, Illinois, feel the same way as a black guy or black gal in San Diego,
in Florida,
in Florida,
York,
and it's the same story, right? It's when I see the lights go on behind me,
right,
I get nervous.
There's no hypotheticals. They all have real life experiences of things that have happened to them.
Yeah,
but somehow we're all making it up.
So last week I'm driving home, and I'm following Zoe, right? And we're coming up 31, and Zoe is literally 2 miles an hour under the speed limit. Now, I know he's had a long day. This is 10 o'clock at night. I know he wants to get home.
Right.
I want to get home. I'm behind him, literally 2 miles an hour below. And I'm like, But then when it opened up past Algonquin there, the bypass, I was like, I got to go.
Right.
And then where it's 45, I'm going 60. I'm like, got to go. And I went past him, and I'm just sitting there thinking, he can't do that. Because they're if it's him or me, they're going to get him.
He'll get that escort.
Right.
Well, one thing that now I actually just did it because my wife's like, oh, here my sticker was up on my plate. Yeah. So I got it on, I got it in, it expired in September.
Right.
And so I got the new one on. However, and I don't know if I'm going to guess that there's no retro penalty for this. Last year, 2020, I forgot to put my sticker on, and it stayed, and it expires in September. It stayed in my glove box until June this year.
Never got pulled over.
Not once, not ever, not a nothing. But then again,
had police behind you.
Oh yeah, many times. But again, I'm an old
white guy,
old bearded white dude. So I don't know. Is that a thing? I don't know. It's just because I don't, and I do drive like an old dude. I don't really speed around or anything. I mean, sometimes.
The only time I really do is when the light turns green. Now it's a race.
Yeah.
So what I want to talk about and not playing the victim is, I was watching the vice presidential debate, and then I watched the wrap up on ABC News, and again, ABC News is wonderful, all white people, one sister on there, right? One black lady, who was like tore Pence apart and how great Kamala did. Right now, I don't know if I don't think there was a winner. They both did very well. I don't, both very well spoken, both very committed. And I do like Mr. Pence's last response better than Kamala's, but that's just me. But the interesting thing is where the white lady who supports Pence and Trump on there was hey, hey, I think he did this well. I think he did this well. I think she did this well. It was good. The black lady was like, oh, she was phenomenal. She did this. He hates, this is why he hates women. This, was still in there. This writer, if you follow this writer, and she's very good writer and writes good pieces, but it is geared towards the conservative audience. And if I ever did was just take the conservative view or the liberal view on something,
right,
then yes, the racism, the hate, everything will stay there, because I don't know any different. And I will, if all I did was read Sylvia Thompson, I would literally think that every black person in America thinks like she does because she's black. And then I see a Candace Owens who's also black and feels that way too, and they have the right to feel that way. That's fine, right. But then I would see a liberal like this young lady who's on ABC News and go, she's full of hate, and what is she just is hateful, because all I do is get one side of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
Do writers like this, do people who just follow one, and I'll use Rush Limbaugh as an example. I'm not a big Rush Limbaugh fan, never have been. He's a radio disc jockey that he does what he does. He entertains and he makes a lot of money at it. But he makes Democrats seem like the devil or whatever, right? So is it healthy for people to just take one view or the other, in your opinion?
No, not at all. That's when you get closed-minded in a bubble, and that's why beliefs get solidified, good or bad, right or wrong, when all you do is hear that same type of information. Like we were kind of joking about before, we got on the air. Like it was when I moved out here and learned who Journey was.
Right.
I got a new taste of music. Okay, well, this is Dave Matthews. This is Incubus. This is outside of just my comfort zone.
Yep.
When you start to talk to other people who don't look like you or have the same belief as you, you start to see, okay, not all of them are this way or that way, or I can see where they're coming from on this. But most people just get their news on other cultures from television or Facebook versus actually having a dialogue.
So how do you get people who feel that minorities, African Americans, disabled people are playing victims to stop focusing and thinking that they're playing the victim?
I think in the conversation we had, like, how many black people do you see actually playing victim? And then you see the lights go on. None of them. All right, we're making progress here. I don't think that Ted plays the victim. I think Ted tries to overcome
pretty tough guy.
any obstacle that comes in front of him.
Yeah.
Stuff happens and he keeps going, but it's not that we're playing the victim. It's just this person shouldn't be treated this way the same way as this person shouldn't be treated this way. Would you like it if, when you were talking about black people are more likely to commit a crime because we're victimized? I don't even have to make eye contact with Kent. Watch his face. Hey, Kent, if someone broke into your home and endangered your daughters, what would you do?
Kill him.
He was the victim, and he's retaliating for being victim. But we can't
kill him. Boyfriends too, just so you know.
Right. But if we break it down,
right,
it's okay for Kent Jones to say that he would do this in retaliation of. In the same breath, we're saying, well, we're concerned that black people will retaliate if things happen. I'm not retaliating. At the same time, be real. You can't keep pushing a certain anyone.
Sure.
There's going to be some type of pushback. How to avoid that? Don't push initially. Then there's nothing to push back from. If you don't want people to retaliate from being a victim, don't make them one. Don't profile. Don't be racist. Don't do the things that's been done systemically for years. And there's nothing to push back from. Problem solved. But we won't do that because it makes us more money to say that these are the bad guys and this is how we fix the problem.
But at the same time, the United States is on edge because of race right now. I mean, it probably has been for a long time, but now more than ever, we've got people of all colors, nationalities, and everything rioting and looting and burning
me
and
because I'm close to
right.
Go.
Right. But now down in down in New Orleans, there is a black militia that has started and has said it's war, and we're going to kill people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. Now at the same time, there's been white militia saying that for many years as well.
Openly.
But I will also say that's scary.
Right.
I mean, because at that point, because I have a lot of black friends, I've got Muslim friends, I've got a lot of brown friends.
Right.
I would be lumped in there. Right. That's scary. And how do you just have to know that everybody's reality is different. Pete, the world you live in, your reality is different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Your reality is different than mine, and that's okay. What I think we need to stop doing is saying, because you like Trump, you're a racist, homophobic, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We have to stop lumping everybody into the same bag, because that may not be my reality.
Right.
Right. And I think if we want to move the dial in any talk, we want to heal America, if we want to make it a place where the melting pot, what it was supposed to be,
right,
then we have to understand that everybody's reality is different. But that's okay.
We can't also be selective when lumping is good or bad. We can't say that lumping is bad when it's Trump and then love an article that says all black people are whining.
Correct.
It's kind of contradictory. It's kind of hypocritical. It's kind of bad to say, well, because I like this, you're just going to think that I believe this way. All of blank does blank.
Right.
It's kind of not okay. But people are doing it.
But people
are praising people who are lumping people, but not wanting to be lumped. Again, take a step back and look at the whole picture of what's going on. If we don't like it, don't do it.
Right.
Easy fix.
See, I think too many people are afraid of that easy fix because they're listening to what you just said earlier. The media is telling you these people are victims. You're going over and over and over. People want to accept generalities without making any effort to go, hey, Phil's cool dude. I got to know him a little bit. Seems all right. Kent's cool dude. Even though they're both bald, they're all right.
Bald's beautiful.
Winning.
That's right.
But we all have beards.
Bald and beautiful.
That's right.
We all have beards. So there you go.
We're in.
But I find it amazing, really, truly amazing and astounding to me that we're having these discussions, and we have to have these discussions on race, which is the color of our skin. Now, having grown up again in my reality, in my world, where this just wasn't a thing. I had black friends, I had brown friends, I had, for crying out loud, my sister is half and half. She's
she's part male, part female?
No, she's she's
like
she's
one of those circus people.
No, she's lovely to pour in coffee.
Oh, wonderful.
No. Her father was a black dude. Her mother was my aunt. She became my sister. I think she was 2 weeks old.
Right.
And because my aunt had written my mom a letter that said, look, if you don't come get her, I'm just going to go leave her on the tar shacks over here where they grew up. They were in Oklahoma. There was actually tar shack places.
Right.
I'm going to leave her here because, there was a big, she only found out just recently within the last year or two who her father was. And unfortunately, she found out who her father was maybe 3 months after he passed away.
Right.
So, but that family, who was a black family, said, hey, well, come on in. sit down. You couldn't have had a kinder, warmer welcome
Right.
to someone that just said, here's what I've learned,
Right.
kind of would like to confirm, and not much more than paperwork, and they're just like, oh well, okay, you're part of the family. Here you go. There you go.
Yeah.
You're done.
So Ted, thanks for that comment. Ted says people need to remember America is made up of many different races and cultures. People need to remember America is made up of many different social classes. Not everyone is the same, and we all deserve the same respect. When it comes to looting, if you got a problem with the police, why take it out on businesses owners trying to get ahead just like you? Because that is the narrative that the media has pushed people to, right? And it's come to that point.
By the way, insurance really does not cover looting.
No, it doesn't. Social change is not achieved through a broad legislative form or reform, right? It's just not. What must happen today is that each of us must assess our motivation and prejudices. It is a person by person change whereby the nation gradually changes itself on an issue. Right. Such a shift is hard but necessary process, and we must have the collective will to do so and promote interaction and unity between the races. And that's what I'm saying is hey, yeah, man, has my nose been broken by a black? Yeah. Did it deserve to be? Yeah. Right. But that doesn't make him racist. Doesn't make me racist, right?
Yeah,
That means
you
I
both
was
jerks.
I was a jerk. I needed my nose broke. There you go. Guess what? But the problem is we're not willing to accept our prejudices,
right?
And we want to lump everybody into the same grocery bag and say all of Black lives don't matter. All lives matter. Well, then Black lives do matter, people. Listen to what you're saying. Well, not just, but no, that's not what they're saying. That's not what's being said. Now, the organization is a bad thing, right?
And I think it would make a big difference if simply they would say we matter. We. It wouldn't seem. I think people take that Black Lives Matter as exclusionary, but it's not. I know it's not intended that way.
But I want you to understand something. If you are naive enough to believe that there is not a racism and it doesn't have, I was literally yesterday sitting in a barbershop. Well, just because it's fun. I didn't need a haircut, right? And there's an old gentleman there, and he's getting his haircut, and he's telling a story about up here in Northern Illinois.
Oh, this is good.
And this is a different one than what I told you.
There's more?
Yeah. And Lily was talking about an issue 2 weeks ago. And the Negro, he says, responded this way. And my eyes were like, what?
I love 815.
and my mouth. I was sitting there with my mask on because the older gentleman in the chair had a mask. The barber's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." But I was like, "No." And literally, my eyes fell and my mouth was just like, "What did you just say?"
He didn't hesitate, did he?
Did not hesitate.
Oh, surprise!
Right. And
he was older than you by maybe how much?
He was probably in his 70s.
All right.
Right. So 20 years older.
So here's the cool thing.
Yeah.
Is that he probably was an avid watcher of Moving On Up, George Jefferson. I would guess maybe Sanford and Son.
Sure.
With Red Fox.
Yeah.
And maybe even Arch Bunker with Carol O'Connor.
Yeah.
And what do those three shows have in common? The time period.
Yeah.
Number one. What's number two? Each main character was racist as hell.
Yeah.
In those. And everybody freaking laughed. And I think what has happened was now we hear, oh, you can't, and you don't say that.
No.
You just don't say that.
That's why I was like,
and Yeah, you pull the Scooby-Doo under your mask.
Oh yeah.
But here's the thing. We have lost the ability to find humor in situations and laugh together. And what did we learn from those shows, though? I mean, as kids, do you remember watching those? As I love those things.
Well,
Red
yeah,
Fox
I
is
mean,
one of
that-
my most favorite
as
comedians.
a picker, you can make a lot of money nowadays.
But
Fred Lamont was a dummy. You big
Yeah,
dummy.
if you watch those and interspersed
Right.
and interwoven, there was always a little bit of a message about racial coexistence and
That's what made
learning to
Welcome
live
Back
together.
Hotter so good.
Yeah,
That was very
you
diverse.
know, incredibly, and we don't have that now. All of a sudden, instead of those as racist as those characters were in that show, and you can't get away with that now. You in TV or anything, we have somehow taken a step back even further than where those shows were in the 70s, because they were bringing us forward and bringing us into a mentality and saying, look, kids, we know we're different.
Right.
And sometimes that can be pretty freaking funny, but guess what? That's because it's okay. We're different and different's okay.
Yeah.
And now we're being told we're different, and that's not all right.
Yeah. But I mean, my parents, 78 years old, would not say Negro.
Right. That's
They wouldn't even have said it was a black guy. They would have just been, hey, you know, so this guy said this, or this gentleman said this, right? So
Is that not okay to say? Black guy, black person?
No, that is.
No, it is,
Just
but
Negro.
right.
I mean,
There's a white dude in a barbershop saying this Negro responded with,
Right.
he's not Red Fox. He probably doesn't have a lot of black friends that he chuckles with.
Right. It was more
no,
like
probably not.
right.
We
So-
don't know that. That's why your jaw hit the floor.
Right. I had
Even though it was held up by a face
I
diver.
had another discussion with a retired sheriff, and been retired for years, who said right here in McHenry, if there was an African American driving through McHenry, they would pull them over and escort them either to the Wisconsin border or the Lake County border. That was their job. That was what they were to do.
Wow.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. So it exists, right? And it's tough. And how do you fight that? Now, I don't believe that they do that now. I don't know. I haven't talked to a sheriff who's active, right? Right. But that's not that long ago, folks, is what I'm saying. It's not that long ago.
You don't get escorted this time.
So what we have to understand is, to Ted's point, change will come when people remember and treat each other the way you wish to be treated and learn to relax.
Right.
I agree. And there is certain reform and things, but it has to start. You have to look yourself in the mirror, right? I mean, Michael Jackson said it, man in the mirror.
Right.
You want change to happen, it has to start with the man in the mirror. And you have to understand, as a good conservative American, it's okay to realize that a liberal can have a different view, can have a different reality. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say that a Mexican American can have a different reality.
Right.
That a Muslim American can have a different reality than you. But we can all still get along. We can all, I mean, why not?
Why not?
Right? And literally this week I was being followed by a police officer. It looked in my rearview mirror. Nothing wrong. I don't have any outstanding warrants or anything, right? I got my sticker on my car. I got my insurance up to date. And for a minute, my heart went, whoo, better 10 and 2 this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why? I haven't done anything wrong. So I just kept driving, right?
Right.
That was it. But for that minute. And then a little piece of me goes, and I'm white because of this show, right? Because of what I've learned from you and Zoe and the people that I've talked to. I'm like, yeah. Now with Jones, it's that's a gamble, and you see the bald head. So if you don't get a good look,
Right.
you could.
You're tan on the top.
Yeah,
so-
you could, right? But then I was like, I'll be all right. right? And I think we have to learn to not get upset with people whose reality is different than ours.
Right.
And the way to do that is to talk with them and listen to them. To Ted's point, just relax, listen,
have those conversations,
and it's okay. You may never come to a common ground, but you know what? If there's something that Phil and I, Pete, that you and I disagree on, and we disagree pretty intensely and passionately, we probably won't bring it up again because
Right.
it's an uncomfortable spot for us. We know where each other stands,
right?
but then it's here.
Right.
Then we move on.
Well, that's because we know how to agree to disagree.
Right. And that's what I think a lot of things are not happening that way.
Right.
And instead of, and we talked a little bit about this last night in the gym, is why do we keep poking the bruise? Why don't we figure out? Well, because when we poke the bruise, that's money in our pocket.
Right.
That's viewers.
Right.
That's comments.
Yeah.
Right.
People do whatever for views and likes.
So, if I come up to Phil and he's been in a car accident, he's got a bone sticking out of his thigh, I'm going to try to help him. I'm going to be like, hey, does that hurt?
This didn't happen to you.
This did
It's
not
not
happen.
true. You're
Right.
whining. You're
Right.
probably not helping the situation at all. And I mean, like Ted said, treat people how you want to be treated. And I feel like when we're having these healthy conversations, if we're going to address the looting and the rioting, I think that's just pent up energy and aggression redirected in the wrong way. And I promise you, if people were to reach out versus just write and actually have conversation with people and listen, and they're allowed to get that energy out through healthy dialogue, the things that we're complaining about would be fixed. So I challenge those who don't like looting and rioting. Have you actually had a discussion where you didn't tell Black people their reality? And if you haven't, you're just fueling the fire that you don't like. To put it out, listen, have conversations, ask questions, but don't tell them what the reality is or isn't. Talk and hear people when they talk to you. Try that.
It's hard. And my first response when all this kind of tipped off and everything here this year with the George Floyd is, what was my response? I'm sorry. I wish I could say I know how you feel, but I can't.
Right.
I can't even walk in your shoes because I'm not Black.
Right.
I'm not a minority, right? So that's the first thing. And once you realize that I can't live in your reality, I've got to accept it for what it is. And that's hard for people to do because everybody that I read is liberal. Everybody that I read has a liberal agenda. All the news that I watch has that liberal agenda. Is telling me the same story. I'm being programmed over and over and over again to say that no, if you're a minority, you can't think conservatively. You can, right? But what is the so we'll go back to renewamerica.com with Sylvia Thompson. If it's all that I read, if that's all that I am, and it's all it bases it all on political and bashes liberalism. Where am I getting?
Well, all it's going to do is feed your confirmation bias.
Yep.
That's it. If you don't listen and don't, just like you both said, just listen.
Yeah.
One of my sons, we joke a lot because he's quite liberal. I'm much more conservative.
Right.
But you know what? He's my son.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ignore what he's trying to share. That is obviously extremely important to him.
Right. But do you try to force your view on him?
Oh, not at all.
Right. And I think that's where the argument starts is you feel, well, I will tell you your reality. No.
Right.
And your reality has to be my reality because this is what I know.
Which is just on the topic of being an African American in America. You trying to tell me my reality on that topic just baffles me. I just watch person after person all on the timeline just trying to tell African Americans what it's like to be an African American.
You can have white chocolate.
I am the whitest of the white. I am a ginger.
You are pasty.
I could not I got nothing to say because
every comment section.
how could I possibly tell you what your experience is? All I have is mine.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't have anyone else's experience. Not even the person I'm closest to in the world, my wife, who I love incredibly deeply and very, very much. She has an experience all her own that I can only look at from the outside.
Yeah.
I cannot see it. All I can do is listen.
Yeah.
And if I can help, then I help.
It's necessary sometimes.
And that's and truthfully, right? And that's Ted, you're absolutely right. We as human race need to learn how to love each other and help each other through tough times, to give those less fortunate when we can, and teach our children to respect people regardless of where they come from. But also, I'll tip on that. I've got a 6th grade daughter, and their history and whatnot. So I will continually ask, what did we learn about the African Americans in this piece of history? And to District 200, they're sprinkling it in there. I'm not going to say they're putting it, but it's not the same set of it's not George Washington Carver that I knew, the 5 token African Americans that we were raised with, right? So they're doing a nice job, but it's also making them aware that it does exist and what is their reality. And with these young people, you're absolutely right, Ted. By doing that, you're going to be able to change the world by changing these young. I mean, the 70-something-year-old white guy in the barbershop, that's a lot of life like that.
It's pretty deep.
Yeah. Yep. And so I think if we were to do that, it's going to be shows like this. It's going to be having conversations. It's going to be open, that open dialogue.
Right.
Not being afraid to teach a basketball team, not being able to teach a prayer group.
Right. Have those conversations.
Yeah, let's be real about this, right? And Jesus was from Africa, so there you go. White surfer dude from Africa.
White surfer from Africa.
All right.
Sunshine?
Hey, listen, I appreciate everybody. And Ted, anytime you want to be part of the show, let us know. We'll send you a link. We'll get you on.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, absolutely love you, brother, for everything you're doing. Thanks for doing this. And
people,
yeah, Pete as well. And folks, thanks for tuning in.
Right back at you.
Come back next Friday when we'll be at it again. We don't know quite what it'll be. We kind of watch what's happening. But this one sat for a couple of weeks, which was good. And I appreciate that. And just know that people aren't playing the victim. The media wants you to think that people are playing the victim. They aren't.
Sure.
So sit and talk with them in that freezer, and know that all the 32 flavors that Baskin-Robbins get along inside that freezer.
Quite delicious when they're together.
Delicious. Delicious.
Gosh.
I just learned pistachio is really good. I've never had pistachio.
You never had pistachio
No,
ice
I'm learning
cream?
that pistachio ice cream is really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really good. It
Yeah.
is. If
But
you like
see-
pistachios.
But see, when I'm outnumbered on the stands that I don't have any confirmation, and you guys are telling me your reality,
Right.
I'm listening.
I just tried it this week. I had pistachio
And
gelato.
I'm gonna add some new flavor to my life. Look at that.
If you like pistachios, it's interesting.
Okay.
I like coconut cream too.
Yeah.
Ice cream.
I've
pretty
never
good.
had that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would, actually, when I first tried
Yeah,
it.
I
thought,
always
yeah,
liked
it's
the
gonna be good.
coconut cream pies because of Gilligan's Island.
We love you guys.
All right.
All right, come back next week, folks.